Well, Dufflyn, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Arlena. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, we better start recording because I'll just sit here and talk to you all damn day. So much to talk about today. So we are going to talk about breakups and sobriety. Man, that's a messy thing, isn't it?
It can be. It can be really messy. And I feel like breakups and sobriety, breakups in general kind of go in different stages. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a
And
minute. I've been married. I was telling you, I've been married, with my husband for like 27 years. So this is not I had to kiss a lot of frogs. Let's don't get it twisted. But it's been a minute. So I'm so glad to have you on to talk about that. We're going to talk about a few different things. Breakups in sobriety is one thing, but we're also going to talk about sex, love, and dating as in recovery. I like your tagline, rock relationships in recovery. I love that sort of alliteration that it has. But we're going to talk about heartbreak to healed. That's your upcoming course that you're putting together. Is that right?
I'm putting that one together now. The Love Him or Leave Him course is already out and available on my website.
Okay.
So that's more if you're in a relationship and you're struggling, you don't know if you should break up.
Okay.
You think you're thinking about it and you
That
need
is
some
a
support.
that is a huge question to answer. I have worked with many women over the years that are in that place where they've been in pain for a long time and they've tried all the things, done all the counseling, but just can't seem to get over to the tipping point of gotta go, right? Or I can leave or whatever. So answering that question is super important. And then after that decision has been made, or sometimes it's not your decision and the relationship ends and you're left holding this big heartbreak. And so I'm excited for you to do the heartbreak to healed. Will you have like a waiting list that people can sign up for? Because I know that there are going to be people on here that hear this and go, oh my God, I need this right now. But maybe they can get on a waiting list or something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do have a waiting list and I'll
Okay.
send you a link for that and I'll send you a
Okay.
link for Love Him or Leave Him. And a lot of times also when I work one-on-one with people, I've been using the work that will go into the Heartbreak to Healed course already for years one-on-one with clients. So anybody
Right.
who wants to do that can also do it one-on-one with me if they need to do it immediately.
Okay. Yeah. What's that? So I'm just going to throw your contact info out right at the beginning. What is it?
So my website is rockrelationshipsinrecovery.com. And
Okay.
you can find me on Instagram. It's just at Dufflyn.
We have friends, and I refer to Dufflyn, everybody knows who you are. That's the benefit of having a unique name. So there's that.
Exactly. It's just me and a little girl named Dufflyn Baruelos in the Philippines who is named after me, oddly.
Ah, after you.
I swear that the parents found me on Facebook and they were like, can we please name our daughter Dufflyn? We were searching for names and we really love your name. And I said no, and they did it anyway. And then they
You
sent me her
said
picture
no.
and I was like, okay, you have my blessing. She's darn
You
cute.
said no. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. You're like, no, no.
No, mine. Make your own.
No, no is a complete sentence. Well, shall we get back to relationships?
Yes, let's.
I will lead you astray. I'm sorry. I'll circle back though. So breakups in sobriety, but you are an expert. Is that fair to say in attachment styles? Because that's what we talked. Okay, so this is your second round. This is our second round together. The first episode we did talk about your recovery journey. So if you're listening and you want to hear Dufflyn's recovery story, I will leave a link in the show notes, or you can just look up Dufflyn at odatchat.com and you will see her episode. So you can hear her story. But at the end of our last conversation, I was like, oh my God, we need to do a round two to really get into what are attachment styles? How do we attach to people? How does it affect those of us who are in recovery? Because a lot of us had some pretty messed up childhoods and developed some unhealthy attachment styles and coping skills. And then we try to grow up and have healthy relationships. And it's just a total clusterfuck. So, shall we go over what the attachment styles are?
Yes, sure. Let's start there.
Okay.
There. So I'll make this as simple and basic as I can, and then we can dive in a little bit deeper.
Okay.
So attachment theory was created by a psychologist named John Bowlby, and in the 1930s. And so he began looking at children, babies, really in the first 3 years of life, and how they behaved with their caregivers. And he was focused on the mother. And then he came up with different patterns based on what he observed clinically. And then Mary Main took over his work, and she expanded that. And since then, there have been a number of different people, including Daniel P. Brown at Harvard University, who, rest in peace, Dan Brown, recently passed. I've been studying with him. Yeah, really a great loss.
With him
for the last 2 years.
Oh,
and
I'm sorry.
It's so sad. And it's also so beautiful because he was an incredibly enlightened human being, a master meditator, and also just really a very, very educated clinical psychologist. And so someone who was able to combine those two worlds. And so he's come up with the 3-pillar approach to treating attachment theory, which is what I use, to treating attachment injury, which is what I use today.
Oh, okay.
So what are we treating? What are we looking at here? So essentially the idea of attachment theory, and it's developed, over the years, and these different people have contributed. The idea is when you're a baby, you're born and you're a blank slate, and someone comes to take care of you. And the way that they come to take care of you gives you information about what you can expect from the world. And, can you expect for your needs to be met? Can you expect to be loved? And so we make meaning out of that. And so attachment is not only about how we love, it's about how we see ourselves and how we see the world. So within that, there are different attachment styles that have been identified both in children and adults, and they are consistent throughout our lifetime unless we make a concentrated and consistent effort to change them. So the basic attachment styles are developed, in the first 3 years of life, for sure. Newest evidence is saying possibly even the first 10 months.
Wow.
So this has to do, also with non-narrative memory, which is to say, before we have words, right? And this is why the treatment for it is what it is, because talking about it doesn't always change it. Right? Because it came to us without words. It came to us through facial gestures and nonverbal, interaction and collaboration between the caregiver and the child. So what are the different attachment styles? So we have the secures, and that's 50% of the people in the world are securely attached. These people have the attitude of, I'm okay, you're okay. Right? So they believe that they can expect for their needs to get met. They believe that they can and will find love. And so, someone coming from that attachment style generally has, a pretty good time of it. These people, tend to marry younger and tend to do well in relationships, tend to have more stability in relationships. And then we have insecurely attached people. And within insecurely attached people, there are several different styles. So there's the anxious avoidance, or the anxious style, anxious preoccupied is what I want to say. So it's anxious in children, preoccupied in adults. There's a lot of different language going around, but basically we're just going to call it the anxious attachment. So the anxious preoccupied person thinks, well, you're okay, I'm not okay. And so this person is overly involved in the mind state of others. They lack a sense of self. They often lack confidence. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of questioning, and that sort of hypervigilance, right? We all know what we're talking about with hypervigilance, right? So that's the anxiously attached person.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
The hypervigilance, is that always looking for them to do something wrong, or why they don't love you, or, checking their phone or checking their email or all that kind of thing?
Well, what I'm talking about there is being overly involved in the mind of the other person to the extent that we can't see ourselves. So they have a hard time mentalizing and identifying their own thinking, because they're so trying to figure out what the other person is thinking, and up in that person's business, right? Up in that other person's thoughts, right? And preoccupied literally with the what is the other person thinking of me? And the idea of that is, I'll talk a little bit more later about the origination of, how does each one of these things come to be? But that's what it's based on, is, the reason for the anxious attachment has to do with the child sort of being trained to take care of the needs of others before their own.
Okay, got it.
It's about the conditioning. Yeah.
So
that's why I say hypervigilance. Okay. Yeah.
Hypervigilance. Got it. Okay.
Right. Okay. And then we have the avoidant or dismissive attachment style. And this person thinks, I'm okay. In fact, I'm fantastic. And you are not okay. So, this person, right, has no trouble keeping the focus on themselves, loves to focus on themselves, and yet to the exclusion of intimacy. So they have a strong fear of intimacy. It feels really overwhelming to them, and they're about shutting down the attachment system. They're about, avoiding vulnerability at all cost. They don't want to recognize feelings, especially negative feelings. So that can be really difficult, right? In a relationship, it's hard to get close to someone who's dismissive. And there are different types of dismissives. There's also the derogatory dismissive, which is one who's, aggressive, derogatory, basically, right?
Right.
Putting you down. And it's in an effort to gain power, really, in the relationship. So the dismissives can be really difficult to have a relationship with. And then we have the disorganized attachment. And so this was originally cannot classify. There's a smaller number of people that are disorganized. And so they exhibit both sides of the coin. And so these are people whose attitude is, I'm okay. I'm not okay. You're not okay either.
Nobody's okay.
Nobody's okay. Nobody is getting their needs met. And right. And so there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of push and pull, come here, go away. There's more dissociation with a disorganized person. And so, on the scale of anxiety and avoidance, they're high with both, right? So if we look at someone who's securely attached, they have low anxiety and low avoidance. We look at someone who's anxiously attached, high anxiety, low avoidance. Someone who's dismissing has high avoidance and low anxiety. And someone who's disorganized has high anxiety and high avoidance. And Arlena, this is 70% of people with addiction.
What?
Disorganized attachment. Yes.
70%.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that kind of makes sense though, to be honest.
Totally makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
Not the hotbed of mental health.
Well, and I think the other thing that I've learned about disorganized attachment in particular is that this is often underlying many other mental health issues, right? Such as borderline personality disorder. That's exactly what it is. Right? Most personality disorders, mood disorders, dissociative identity disorder, a lot of these different mental health issues can be traced back to disorganized attachment underlying it. And so, for example, Dan, who I was telling you about earlier, Dan Brown, he did a study about trauma. And so what he discovered was that if, for example, a person with secure attachment was a soldier and that person went to war, they were much less likely to come back from war with PTSD than someone who went to war with insecure attachment.
Wow. That's
Right.
amazing.
So he used that information to develop this treatment protocol, because essentially in treating any kind of mental health issue, and especially addiction, we address the attachment style first. Right. And then we can do trauma treatment. But people are a lot more resourced to address trauma if they have a stable attachment strategy. And so, good news, everybody. There is also something called earned secure attachment. This is what I am trying to provide for my clients. This is what I feel I have today. And we're never going to. So it's sort of like, if you had a stereo, say you have a stereo, right? And that's your attachment style. When we create earned secure attachment, we can go in and we can rewire the stereo, and we can put in new speakers, and we can do we can do a lot of stuff for it, and we can turn down the volume, right? We can't create, it's still going to be the same stereo, but we can really, really do a lot to make it sound better and make it work better.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Great analogy. Okay, so we could probably go in a few different directions, but I'm so curious, what is the protocol to get the earned secure attachment? Is that something we can briefly overview?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked. So, so Dan developed a 3-pillar protocol. It involves mentalizing, which is basically thinking about thinking. It's sort of like mindfulness. And that can be developed with psychoeducation and meditation. And collaboration, which is about things like taking turns when you're talking, right? If I'm working with a client and they're going off into, several different irrelevancies, I will say, you know what, let's stay on topic. So as they begin to become more collaborative, and this is especially important for the dismissing people, then they begin to be able to have more intimacy. And then the 3rd pillar of the protocol is the ideal parent figure protocol. And this is what I practice with as many of my clients who will let me. So I believe in working from the outside in and the inside out. And so when I work from the outside in, that's the traditional coaching. We have goals, we have action plans, we have accountability, we have containment, right? And then when we're sitting and we're talking, we're doing the mentalizing and we're doing the collaborating. When we work from the inside out, this is the ideal parent figure protocol. And so what we're doing here is about creating a new internal working model. So like I said with the stereo, we're not going to replace or correct the initial experiences you had with your caregivers in childhood. What we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new entries into your perceptual database, right? So it's like
brand new perceptual entries into your database. That is powerful.
It's like we're putting a chip in that old stereo and we're like, hey, have this, right? So you'll have a new frame of reference, essentially. So it's called an internal
software
working
update.
Model. Yeah, exactly. It's like we're going to take that old boom box and we're going to make it into a smart box. And so when we do the ideal parent figure protocol, it's similar to hypnotherapy. It's a meditation intervention for attachment repair. So it's very much attachment based, and there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of specifics, but in a general way, what I do with my clients is I take them into a meditation and I have them imagine a set of ideal parents uniquely suited to them, and completely different from the parents or any caregivers that they grew up with. And if they're able to imagine that, then we go through the 5 functions of secure attachment, which are delight, support for exploration, attunement, soothing, and safety and protection.
Ooh,
so
that's good. Do you have that on a PDF or something? Is there a chart? Maybe we can make one. to promote this?
Absolutely. Well, this is one of the things that I did, when I was hosting at She Recovers. I did a 5-week series where I went through each of the 5 functions of secure attachment as it relates to relationships. So we can talk more about that when we talk about breakups too. But so I take them through this meditation, and we work through each of the 5 functions of secure attachment with those imaginary attachment figures, and then we can go into activations, and there's a whole protocol that goes from there. And it doesn't happen in one session, obviously. You have to continue doing it for a period of time, but eventually what happens is you create a new internal working model, so you have new references from which to make meaning when something happens in your life.
Oh God, that is huge. Yeah. For those that don't know what a protocol is, can you kind of define that for us?
A framework.
A framework, yeah. Like I'm all about like practical steps, right? So to me, in my mind, a protocol is like, these are the practical steps to get you from point A to point B.
Exactly.
Is that fair? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So the 5 functions of secure attachment, it does take a little bit of time. I mean, we are not sort of damaged overnight in one. I mean, we can be, but I remember hearing, I was like, oh man, this healing, it's taking so long. How long is this going to take? that whole thing. And it was like, well, if you think about it, if you did all the drugs you did your whole life in one sitting, it would kill you. It's like healing is almost the same. It's like this gentle process of detoxing. It's like even a bruise will heal in stages, right? You get like the rainbow as it heals. So this does take a minute. This is not about a quick fix. I love a silver bullet or a quick fix, but that just isn't, it's not actually kind or gentle to our souls, for one, but it's just not really practical or possible, I don't think.
No, I agree. And, as I say, I like to stabilize people with some containment, and with the coaching side of things, working from the outside in first. So it's, because always, I want to ask my clients, like, what's killing you the quickest right now?
Ooh, oh, that is such a good question.
And or as we say, let's deal with the alligator closest to the boat. So that's what we do. We hit that sucker on the head, and we get that under control, and then we can move to this deeper work that's going to have a lasting effect.
Okay, that makes sense to me, because we do, like in sobriety, we do crisis management. We help you, stop drinking or doing drugs or whatever, right? And then the real work begins, right? Stopping drinking is just the very beginning, because then when you're sober, it's like you feel all your feelings, and suddenly all this stuff comes up. And so we need a way to process it to resolution. And it's so interesting as we bump up against other people, it's that's when we have an opportunity to practice this stuff, right? And so, geez, it feels like one of the biggest and most obvious ways that we get to practice this stuff is when we experience a breakup. And I wanted to talk to you about breakups in sobriety, because over the years, I have seen friends break up in like the rooms, right? The 12-step rooms, and it can be a disaster. It can be such a disaster. It's like, then they have to split meetings. I'm going to go to this meeting Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you can go to Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And then everybody knows your business, but you got to process your feelings. So sometimes you process out loud and everyone's talking about, it's just a disaster. So is there a way to, break up and still maintain your sobriety and find peace? Do you have good ideas around that?
Okay. Well,
I just lumped a big.
There's a lot to say here. So, I feel like, first of all, thank God for Zoom, because now we can go to meetings all over the world, right?
I know.
And if we need to, let something out, can I swear here?
Oh, please. Yeah. I think
so if my ass is falling off, I can go to Ireland, or I can go to Egypt. I can go anywhere and just be like, right? and let it all out.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think that's one of the great gifts of Zoom meetings. So I think there are lots of solutions around that. Listen, ultimately, rather than trying to numb or avoid the pain, which is what we were doing when we were using substances or behaviors, right, out there in a self-harming way, I think breakups can be an opportunity for growth and healing.
100%.
And so it's a universal human experience, but the hope is to go through it with less suffering and learn from the mistakes, learn from the pain.
Okay, so this is this brings up a question in my mind, because when you break up with somebody, it seems like a couple things happen. One is self, like we beat ourselves up about it. Like there's something wrong with me. I'm flawed. And it's easy to catastrophize. I'm a loser, just go down that dark hole of self-hatred. But I think there is value in, as you know, talking about attachment styles. It's like, what is my pattern? And where did this pattern come from? And why is it causing me to choose this type of person? Or why is it causing me to push people away when things get hard? Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, when we're young children, a separation from a caregiver can mean isolation or even death. So it totally makes sense, this primal panic that results when we're separated from an attachment figure, right? So because those attachment needs are later transferred into our adult relationships. So the attachment injuries of our childhood are triggered when we go through a breakup in adulthood. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us, right? Those reactions are natural within an attachment context. And the initial intensity of it usually passes within a few weeks. So that's good news for anybody who's going through a breakup. But during that time, those first couple of weeks, we might be flooded with all kinds of memories. We might feel like we need to redefine who we are. We might have trouble sleeping. We might get sick. We might analyze all our actions and the conversations. We might have conversations that have never actually been had. Right? We blame ourselves. We blame others. We get obsessive. We might want revenge. I mean, we can feel anything from complete rage to hopeless and helpless.
Yeah. And you know what else I see is like the constant obsession about the good times. And I was like,
Yeah,
did you forget about
that's
all
more
that?
of a
Did you forget about all that shit you just told me?
right, right.
Did you,
That's more of a
am I
preoccupied
crazy?
response.
Oh, is that what that is?
That's more of a preoccupied response. Yeah, a
Yeah, oh, there were
preoccupied
some good
person.
times. He loved me. That we, just no one will love me like that ever again, or I can't get this person out of my mind. I mean, it is torture for the person going through it. It's torture for me as a friend to be like, oh my gosh, you deserve so much better. But I feel like that's a common conversation.
It is. And one thing that's really helpful, for example, like I said, the reason I developed the Love Him or Leave Him course is because I saw so many women coming to me, especially over the last 3 years during the pandemic, who were in a relationship and they couldn't decide if they should stay or they should go. And one of the things that's helpful is to just start writing down all of the reasons, right, on a regular basis, like this thing happened today, right?
Yes.
Journaling about it and writing it down. Because when, later, 6 months later, when you're talking to your friend and your friend is like, yeah, but you told me that he did this and this and this. Instead, what you can say to your friend is go look at that journal where you've been writing down, or your client, right? Where you've been writing down these horrible things that he said to you.
Okay.
Right?
So write down reasons you broke up.
Yeah, the reasons that you broke up, but I think it's actually helpful if you're in the relationship also, right? The reasons that you are thinking about breaking up. And because then, right, if you get to the point where you broke up, you can go back and refer to that. It's kind of the same thing we do with drinking, right? Where you're like, these were the negative consequences. It's like a first step.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are the negative consequences that I faced. And, what we fail to remember, we're doomed to repeat.
Ooh, that's a good one. Say it one more time.
What we fail to remember, we're doomed to repeat. This is why it's so important also to share our stories, right? And thank you again for the privilege of doing that the last time I was here.
That is so good. Of course. Oh my gosh. I knew immediately after we got off, I was like, I'm going to have to get her back. This is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier. Sometimes I feel so, as a friend, I feel like I want to be supportive. You know what the one thing I did learn, Dufflyn, in all this time is that when somebody shares with me how awful he is, like they're in the relationship and they're thinking about leaving, I have learned not to attack him because that puts her in the position to defend somebody that she's mad at. And that actually reinforces all the reasons that why she stays. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to do that.
Absolutely. And see, part of this, I remember asking Dan one time in class, what's the difference between disorganized attachment and a trauma bond? And he said, the only difference is what stage of life you're at when it happens.
What does that mean? Like as an adult or a child or?
Well, right. So disorganized attachment is something that happens when you're a child. A trauma bond is something that happens when you're an adult. But both are based on the idea that the source of love is also the source of fear.
Now, you know what's interesting? It seems like there's a positive side to trauma bonding. Is that because, and let me give you the context. Like, I have been in situations where I'm working with another woman and she shares her pain, and then I share my experience, and then I share a solution, and suddenly like the lights come on, or I can tell she's seeing the situation differently. And it's almost like the pain starts to dissipate or evaporate. And suddenly we're bonded forever. It's like, I get you, you get me. I had this trauma, you have this trauma. And now we're bonded because it's more of like I'm not causing trauma, but like we're on the other side of it and there's healing that happens. But is that different?
100% different. That's not trauma bonding. That's connecting and healing and all the good stuff.
Okay, I was confused.
No, I think I was too, because when I say trauma bonding, I think it's, we share about our trauma and we bond. Yeah. That's not what you're
saying. Okay.
No, that's not what it is. Trauma bonding is what happens when, say, for example, I'm a child. I'm 5 years old. I have a single parent father who's a rager and who's an alcoholic, and he screams and he yells and he punches holes in the wall. And I'm scared that he might hit me, even if he never does, right? And he does this raging, but he's the only person I have. He's also the only source of love for me. He's also the person who packs my lunch and puts a Band-Aid on my knee when it's scraped and tells me he loves me.
Wow. Okay.
That's a trauma bond.
That is a trauma bond. Yeah. So that's domestic violence situations, right? Like.
Well, I was speaking of a parent and a child,
yeah.
Right? And it is violence, and it is abuse, and it's very, very serious. And this is what causes complex PTSD, and attachment injury. Absolutely. This specific situation is called is what causes disorganized attachment in children or trauma bonding in adults.
Okay. So yeah, I grew up with a parent who would rage with anger. And she was the only person she was the only adult in the house at the time. And so but yeah, and she could be really sweet sometimes. So that makes sense. I have disorganized attachment. But anyway,
possibly the only way, there's a lot of quizzes out there and stuff like that, and I even used one that's pretty well developed, but even so, the only way to really for sure identify your attachment style is to use the adult attachment interview. And unfortunately, it takes a lot of time and incredible training to do. So it costs about $1,000 to do it. I think, though, many of us, as we hear these things, can identify some of it for ourselves.
Okay. Yeah. And there are, like you mentioned, you have a couple classes that people can take to heal some of the stuff. That is so interesting that 70% of people in recovery have the disorganized. What are some of the ways we can start healing that, so that I hear people talk about they have a broken picker, they keep picking the wrong person. So, and then, so how do we begin to start healing the disorganized one and get to what did you say, the earned secure attachment,
Mm-hmm.
to
Earned
the
secure.
3-pillar protocol?
Exactly. I mean, that's the treatment developed by Dan Brown, who I believe was the Carl Jung of this generation. Like this man was incredibly brilliant, and he has a book which I've read and study on a regular basis, which is like a huge tome. And continuing to study that and practice it. It's just, I've just seen with my clients that do particularly the ideal parent figure protocol, that they have really marvelous results. And it's almost like magic. Like it just starts to happen. They just start making new choices.
I've heard that. Maybe you've heard this too. A lesson is repeated until it's learned. And we know that the lesson has been learned because we make different choices.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we learn a lesson, we make different choices, then we get different outcomes. It's that whole cause and effect thing. I love that.
Exactly. And it takes time and it takes effort to do that work. I feel that meditation is also really valuable because it makes you a better mentalizer. It makes you more able to identify the thinking, and just sort of inquire, right? Like, oh, I'm thinking this and I'm making what that other person did mean blah 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 blah. This is based on my conditioning from my childhood, where my caretaker behaved in such a way that made me decide certain things about myself and what I can expect from the world. Wait a minute, maybe maybe it's not true, this thing that I'm making up about this situation. Maybe it's actually based on the past and not based on right now. One of the things I suggest to my clients, and which I do all the time myself, is to just ask yourself, how old do I feel right now?
Oh, that's a great question. How old do I feel right now? Yeah, is this in hypnosis? I do something called age regression. And when I ask them, is this familiar or new? Right. And we just keep regressing back in age until they find that it's new. But it's so interesting, these feelings that start at such a young age. And then our minds are just conditioned to having that same response. It's like we get emotional triggers, we come to these negative conclusions, and then we make decisions based on faulty information. And then the law of cause and effect occurs, and we keep taking the same actions and getting the same results. My experience was, I was like, how did I get here again? Like that, when you reach that deep, dark place of despair, how did I get here again? And my brain says, oh, you're broken. That's how you got here again. There's something wrong with you. So I love this whole process that you're talking about to sort of unpack the thinking, is this even really true? And then the meditation that you described about sort of like the reparenting and seeing things in a different way to recondition your mind. That sounds really fascinating. I'm so excited for you to do the heartbreak to heal that's coming. Tell me, let's back up a little bit and talk about love him or leave him before we get to the heartbreak or the heartbreak of a breakup. What are some of the topics you cover in your class, the love him or leave him?
So Love Him or Leave Him is a course that I developed after going through my own sort of crucible, as it were, my relationship.
We overcome a problem and then reach back to help the others.
Right, exactly. And I was like, I got to get through this. And so, I had to dig in, and I went to my resources, and I did a lot of work. And so what I came to was that I needed clarity, confidence, and courage. in order to either heal my relationship or walk away from it. And so the workbook that goes along with the course, and it's a mini course, it's $39, Arlena. Like I'm not trying to make gangbusters,
you should make a lot of money, but $3,900. I spend more than that on shoes.
Right. I feel like it's a mini course. It's an entry into this. Okay. And it's an incredible opportunity to begin to get the clarity, confidence, and courage you need. And a lot of times what I found myself doing is that I'm coaching a client one-on-one, and then in the week between when I see them, the time in between one appointment and the next, I'm having them go into the course and and watch the videos and do the worksheets and then bring that to the next session. Because a lot of times when we're in that place and we're heartbroken, we need support to be able to get through it. And there's a lot of just sort of second guessing, right? It's so too good to doubt. Right. And it's that situation where like, it's too good to leave and it's too bad to stay.
Oh, it's a terrible place to be.
It's so heartbreaking and crazy making. And so stepping into that place with them and supporting them through the work has produced really good results. It's there for people to, if they're motivated and they can go and do it on their own, great, for $39, go and do it on your own. And that's self-paced. So that's completely available right now. But I think, I sort of walk them through a process where they get to really evaluate where they're at, and look at it, in black and white. And then I help them sort of develop some confidence. And this is something that, especially for the preoccupieds, where we really haven't developed much self, because we were expected to be so involved in the mind of the other. And that's something that comes from, being conditioned that way in early childhood, where we were parentified, basically. And that can happen as early as 6 years old, where we begin to think we're responsible for other people's feelings and thoughts. Right. Yeah. And so it gets really difficult then, if we don't have a strong sense of self, to have the confidence to say, yes, I deserve better. And whether that means that we walk away from the relationship we're in, or we stand up in the relationship that we're in, either way, confidence and courage are absolutely required. And then I give some specific techniques as well, for communicating in a conflict, and also just communicating in a non-violent way.
Yes, communicate is so important. Who I learned healthy relationship communication from is my husband, because he was very calm. I used to break shit. That was my way. I'm not Mexican. I lose my shit occasionally, and I would break things. Throw things at the wall, break things. So I learned not to do that. And so we learned to communicate in a calm way and talk things all the way through, and, sit in that uncomfortable space of like, I don't feel better. Do you? Like, no, well, let's keep talking. It's like, how did he learn that? I don't know where he learned that, but, yeah, it's so important to communicate.
Well, he may have learned it from his parents, because here's the deal. People talk a lot about you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else. But when you're a baby and you come into this world, do you know what love is or how to love? I don't think so, right? We learn that, right, from our caregivers.
Right.
And if no one ever taught us that, then we don't know how to love ourselves. Yeah. But one of the best ways, the quickest ways to heal insecure attachment and become earned secure is to get into a relationship with a secure person.
Yeah, that is really
God bless your husband.
I know, he's so amazing. We were joking around that the reason we're still together is because we both have the same goal, which is my happiness. So that works for me. I care about his happiness. I do. But yeah. No, this is such helpful information. I love that the love 'em or leave 'em is sort of like the crisis management. but that you also offer ongoing support to work that stuff through. There is so much that needs to be talked out, because really what we're dealing with are these subconscious beliefs, right? The beliefs of what we deserve, our place in the world, with if the world is a safe place or not. You very eloquently described it in the very beginning. But yeah, rewiring your brain is how we get to that earned secure attachment. That is such good news that this can be learned, and that we can have healthy,
I'm
loving
telling you, sister, I
relationships.
was, yeah, I was so happy to hear that. When I first heard that, I was like, hallelujah.
We do recover. Yeah,
Yes, we do.
this is so important. So you're still doing one-on-one coaching?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I also have a weekly women's group. It's called Heartspring. Some of the women in the group are single, some of them are in relationships, some of them are just coming out of breakups. The group is really focused on seeking healthy, empowering relationships. So we talk about sex, love, and dating in a supportive environment. We have a topic every month, and those topics have been everything from sex to men to codependency, identity, imperfection, dating skills, love addiction, all things that are, supporting them to have healthy, empowering relationships. And so we'll have that monthly topic, and then we'll do some processing and just sharing together about it, which is great because we just realize, oh, we're all in the same boat. Actually, that other person who I saw a picture of her and her husband on her Instagram, but lo and behold, here she is sharing about, oh, actually they have problems too. And it's such a relief when we can come to a space where there's no one is going to shame you, right? And you're going to be
Is that shaming?
accepted.
Okay. So how do people join your women's group, Heartspring?
So if they're interested, they can go to my website, the Rock Relationships in Recovery, and click on the tab that says community, and it will give you all the details in there. There's usually a worksheet every month. There's a special guest every month. There's a WhatsApp group, and they're really lovely women. And that too is really reasonable price. It's $35 a month. Like, I'm trying to keep some of these things really affordable because my one-on-one coaching is pretty pricey. So I just want to make ways for people to be able to come in and work with me if they want to work with me.
Yeah, it's really smart to allow people to use your information, see the results, and build that trust. A lot of us have trust issues in recovery. So what a great opportunity for somebody to get familiar, get to know you, build some trust. And then when they're ready, do that deep dive. Because I'm all about my tagline on Sober Life School is get sober, stay sober, go deeper. Right. And so what happens after sobriety? We need to go deeper. We need to start questioning our thoughts. We need to become aware of our patterns. And then sometimes we just need a little help in changing those persistent patterns. That complex post-traumatic stress that a lot of women have in recovery requires some guidance. Right. We need support, right? We need support in facing and processing those negative feelings to resolution. So I just listen, I love the work that you're doing. And it sounds like you might be doing a podcast pretty soon. Please let me know. I will shout it from the rooftops when you do it. Because man, that breakup space is really hot. I encourage you to get after it.
It's true. And that, I feel like that it kind of goes in stages when it comes to the breakups, like we have to work through the pain, we have to heal, and we need support to do that. I read some research recently. They talked about how contact with your ex is associated with poor breakup functioning.
Like if you have a contact. Oof.
Yeah. The longer you stay in contact with that person, like the longer you're going to be in the pain, basically. And
it's just like using drugs. Your brain doesn't really ever have a chance to heal from like that dopamine reward system. You have a skewed dopamine reward. And in my mind, like I attack this through hypnotherapy and self-esteem. Like in my mind, like water seeks its own level. And if your self-esteem is low, then you attract what you believe you deserve. Like when somebody tells me about how horrible their partner is, in my mind, I just go, oh, that's what you believe you deserve. And so my thing is let's work on that.
Right? You stay
Yeah.
classy, San Diego.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for all the work that you do. And if there's anything I can do to promote or help you in any way, please let me know.
Oh, likewise, my dear. It's so, so good to see you. And thank you for all that you do too, and just getting the information out there.
Yeah.
You know, together we can.
Let's change some lives.
Right? That's right. I am on a mission to bring more love into the world, one heart at a time.
One heart at a
Starting
time.
with yours and mine.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk again real soon.
Okay. Bye.